Good evening and welcome to the stream this evening. What I'm going to do, at least for a while, is to continue with carving this dragon. And we'll see just how things go. Now, I've got a slightly different setup. I've moved the camera, so hopefully you won't get as much vibration from the carving itself. It's in a slightly different position, so I'm not quite sure how well it's going to work, but we shall see. Don't have a lot of space in the studio here, so it's the camera is currently clamped to a shelf. Right. Also, at some point in the stream, I'm probably going to get interrupted slightly to eat some tea, so that may well happen as well. I'm going to clean this out a little bit. Don't need to do much. I just want to remove the rough material that's in there. So I'm going to use a small U-gouge, little tiny one. Which feels like it needs sharpening. But we've done enough just for the moment there, just to clean that out, make it look a bit tidier. Now I'm going to do some stop cuts around here, around the body. And some stop cuts around the arms. Then I can carve this area of the wing down just a little bit. Be very careful here. In fact, I'm doing it from the wrong side. The grain of the wood is wanting to make the tool do that, and then it's going where not necessarily going to go where I want it to go. I'm going to have to be a little bit careful of just how I carve this. In fact, guys, yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, those of you who are watching the stream, I'm afraid I'm going to have to change what I'm doing on stream tonight. I was going to be doing some carving, but due to the fact that I've had some minor surgery this afternoon on my front, in my chest and stomach area, it's actually hurting when I try and do the carving, because I'm putting pressure actually into on my stomach muscles in order to do the carving, and it's painful to say the least when I do that. So I'm going to change what I'm actually doing on tonight. So unfortunately, I won't be doing the carving, but I will be doing something else. So if you've joined to see the carving, I apologise, but it's just going to be too painful to continue doing that. So what I'm going to do is switch over to doing something different. What I'm going to do is I'm going to continue something that I've been doing on Saturday streams, and that is some Punchcraft. So if you just bear with me whilst I just update the stream information, and then people don't get confused about what I'm doing. We'll update that. What I'm going to do now then is just update this, take that off of there and that off of there, and I will just update this. So sorry about this, folks. I shall be with you shortly. I'm just going to just update this. No, that doesn't do it. That's 100, so that's about 350 by 500. That's about right. Position and sign, no, properties, wrap. Okay. There we go. Okay. Sorry about that, folks, but as I say, I've had some minor surgery today on my front and on my stomach, and it's actually making doing the carving too painful to actually continue doing, because it requires, with carving, it requires some effort of the stomach muscles when I'm sat down to actually hold my position whilst I'm carving, and that's pulling on the surgery, which is actually hurting. So the anaesthetic is also wearing off in that area, and so it is hurting me a little bit. So I'm going to do this because I can do this basically with no pressure on my stomach muscles. So I hope you guys don't mind, but it's either that or not actually have a stream this evening. and I'd quite like to do something just to take my mind off it. So if you guys don't mind the switch, then I shall carry on doing this. Right, so all I've done is just put a mark in there because I'm going to use two colours of green, a light green and a mid green here, to just do these two areas down here. I'm going to do this foreground one lighter and the background one darker. Doesn't matter which one I do first, so I'm going to do the background one first. So I now need a needle threader. Now this thing takes a really long needle threader. So what we're doing now is a different craft, a craft that's called Punchcraft. And this is a punch tool, the purpose of which is to punch a loop of this thread through this material and out onto the other side. So what you're looking at here is the back of the piece, and the other side has got lots of loops of thread on it, so it looks somewhat, well, to some extent, like a rug or a carpet. And this method of creating the image is actually one that is the rug making industry do use, although sometimes they cut the loops on the other side to create straight threads rather than loops. Now then, let me just adjust my chair. I need to get comfortable this evening, so I need to be fairly close. Right, I didn't actually think the surgery would be as painful carving, so fortunately it is. What I'm doing now is just creating the edge first, and I'm doing that because I'm creating a sculptured edge, or a sculpted edge. So the edge is rounded off. It produces a much neater look on the other side, but it's a lot easier to do that at the start, because I know exactly where the edge is. If I try and do it at the end, the problem is I don't know where to start the sculpting from, and if I get it wrong, then I don't get a nice edge. So by doing the edge first, I know I'm not going to have a problem. So this tool has a variable depth, and so I'm doing it on the minimum depth at this point here. What I'm going to do is 2 rows at minimum depth, so 2 rows of these loops. Then I'll go to the next depth setting, and I'll do 2 rows at the next depth setting, and then finally I'll switch to my working depth and do the rest of this grass at the working depth. So I'm creating sort of 3 different depths of loops on the other side. By doing them in order at the end here at the cut of the edge, I create a nice rounded edge. So if anybody's joined for the carving, I apologise, I can't do that this evening. So I'm doing this instead of the carving. Thank you. Do you want to just give me? Just put it on, I'll put it on here. Would you be kind enough to get me a glass of cold water?
Fizzy water?
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, fizzy will be fine, yeah, thank you. Okay, so now I'll switch to the second depth and do 2 more rows. So again, for anybody who's just joined the stream who may be familiar with me normally carving at the moment, although this is another of the crafts that I do, this I generally do on a weekend during the day. Unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on your point of view, today I've been in the hospital and had some surgery, and that surgery has been done on my front and stomach area, and what I found when I just tried to do carving at the start of the stream is that I'm tensioning my stomach muscles, which is kind of needed to during the carving process. I'm sort of holding myself quite rigid, or relatively rigid, shall we say, stabilizing myself with my stomach muscles, and that's putting tension on the surgery areas and is causing pain. So I'm kind of unable to carry on doing that, I'm afraid. So I had to stop the carving. So I kind of had 2 choices. I can either stop the stream, or I could do something different. This is a piece that I have ongoing from Saturday afternoons and Sunday afternoon streaming, so I'm just continuing with this because I don't need my stomach muscles whilst I'm doing this. I can fully support my the work and my hands just by resting on the table here, and I can relax the muscles. So I apologise if you've dropped in to see carving. I'm hoping I will feel okay enough to maybe do that tomorrow night. Unfortunately, it's a recovery process, so I'm just going to have to see how it goes. I will go back to the carving as soon as I can do. In the meantime, this is another of the crafts which I do. This is called Punchcraft. From the point of view of that, I'm punching this thread through the material to create a loop on the other side, which is what's actually forming our piece of art or the image that's on the other side of the canvas. Although this isn't actually canvas, it's some form of woven material. Whilst you can see the picture on the back here, and it's a relatively interesting design, I suppose. You can actually sort of see something of the colours and things. It does actually look a lot better on the other side. This is the back side. Now the image is actually of a locomotive, a British locomotive, which I understand is called a Class 66. I just happen to like the look of it. So it's the subject of this particular piece. Okay, so now we switch to working depth. Thank you very much. Oh, thank you. My beautiful wife has just brought me a glass of cold fizzy water. Good evening, welcome to anybody who's joined the studio, is watching the studio this evening. I'm sorry that normal programming has been interrupted. Unfortunately I'm unable to do carving this evening. I've had to suspend that, and the current programming has been substituted in order that the stream can continue this evening. And what you're looking at is Punchcraft. So I apologise if you came in specifically to see the carving, but it's just not feasible for me to do that. This is, however, one of the crafts that I can be seen doing. Normally I do this at weekends, and I do this on a weekend in the afternoon. If I do a weekend stream in the afternoon, then this has been the subject of of those streams. This particular craft, I haven't yet. This is the first time I've done this craft as an evening stream. So if you've been watching me before, perhaps you're not familiar with this particular craft. And I say it is just a temporary substitution, but I'm unable to continue with the carving this evening. Okay, so the image, and unfortunately I don't have a reference image up because I've got OBS loaded for carving this evening. The image that's I am creating here is of a British railway locomotive. It's a diesel electric locomotive, which means it uses a diesel engine to operate a generator, and then that generator is what drives electric motors to feed the wheels. It's called a Class 66 locomotive. It's generally used for freight. It's a heavy freight locomotive. Used by quite a few companies in the UK. Unlike some other countries, the UK has train operating companies and freight operating companies, which run their own rolling stock, as it gets called in the UK, and the tracks themselves are operated by a completely separate entity, which for the life of me I think is called Railtrack, but I'm not sure. And the train operating companies operate routes and effectively pay to hire the tracks that they run on. Which is probably different from a lot of other countries where the whole infrastructure is a single, often nationalised industry. It's amazing what you pick up when either you play train simulator like I do, or you just look for nice pictures of railway engines, which is also what I do, because they do make sort of quite nice subjects for things like this. apologise to anybody that's watching the studio at the moment. If you came here expecting carving, that is what I would normally be doing at this time, but unfortunately due to some surgery on my stomach and front this afternoon, I found that I can't actually do any carving without causing myself some pain. So unfortunately I'm not able to continue with the carving just at this moment in time. I'm hoping to resume it tomorrow, but that will unfortunately depend on just how the surgery recovers and whether I can actually stand to use my stomach muscles, which are used to help stabilise myself while I'm carving. In the meantime, in order to continue with the stream this evening, I'm doing this particular craft, which is called Punchcraft. I normally do this on weekend afternoons. It's not it's not been done. I've not done it yet as an evening stream, but I can do this without needing to stress my stomach muscles, and therefore I can manage the pain from the surgery. Well, I said this is Punchcraft, and what I'm doing with this tool is punching a thread through to the other side of this material, creating a loop of thread on the other side, and it's that loop of thread together with all the others which actually create the finished image. It's a process which is or a similar process is used for making rugs in industry, only generally speaking they use a lot more needles at the same time, but they effectively do the same sort of operation. Can actually make rugs doing this as well by hand. I do have a rug making tool. Essentially it's the same as this, except the needle is a larger bore needle, and it can actually take larger thread. Generally speaking, sort of knitting wool is what would be used for making rugs. But you can actually therefore make a rug of any pattern, shape and size that you want, containing almost any picture that you want, provided of course you can get the colours, coloured wool that you need to complete the picture. 3D bloke, good evening. Yeah, I'm on. I almost wasn't, to be honest. I don't know if you caught it, but I've had some surgery this afternoon on my stomach and chest area, and when I started carving, shall we say, I came to very quickly realise just how much I use my stomach muscles in stabilising myself while I'm actually carving, and it became very rapidly apparent that I wasn't going to be able to continue, at least not without shouting in pain, so I had to switch. So I'm doing Punchcraft this evening as a substitute. It was either that or give up streaming altogether. But then if I gave up streaming altogether, who would people have to watch before they come into your stream? Yeah, I'm fine, thanks very much, Free. It's kind of preventative surgery, removal of well, moles, highly pigmented areas, of skin, just in case they are or develop into melanoma. So it's preventative rather than reactive. But it's, shall we say, the anaesthetic's starting to wear off. And I can tell you that jabbing yourself with a an air gun needle isn't quite that bad. Actually, this is more sore than the sharp pain, so it's not quite the same sort of thing. Did you get your airbrush sorted out? I generally clean mine after every session, so I don't generally have that sort of problem, but it doesn't usually take me more than about 5 minutes to clean an airbrush down. And I've found I haven't got, I've never had any real problems with them like that. Well, it's kind of worth having them checked free, you know. It's easy to forget about them, and my wife has had some removed as well, and at least one of them was a good job. And she had it removed, so definitely worth dropping in at the doctor's. If nothing else, they'll probably send you to have photographs taken so they can compare them in a year's time or something like that. Could be, I guess. That's one of the problems with the tiny fine needles, isn't it? Because they're so easy to push in too hard with because I think the badgers have a really long taper on them, don't they? The Iwatas have quite a somewhat relatively shorter taper, and so those tend to have a more of a solid stop. Don't actually know that for certain because I've never had a badger airbrush, but just from what I recall reading about them. Mind you, it's amazing how much you can be easily fooled by just a little paint particle just inside the nozzle, and they're real difficult to see. Actually, that's one thing that it's kind of weird, isn't it? Yeah, long tapered needles. I was just thinking then that it's amazing how easy it is to see through a nozzle that's 0.15mm or quite small like that, but you don't actually see through it, you just see the spot of light, and if it doesn't look round then you know something's wrong. It's actually relatively easy to see, isn't it? Yeah, they do. Of course, because they're a finer taper as well, they've got a sharper point. So the Iwatas aren't. They're still painful if you stick them in yourself like you do, and waving an airbrush around. I've kind of learnt not to do that with the chisels. I don't tend to talk too much with my hands when I'm holding something. Just because I've almost caught myself a few times with a chisel, and I've kind of learnt. Well, that's not very good. I've had that happen when well, not scratched. I've had a cat lick my arm sore, and then it's looked like it's got thousands of tiny scratches on it. And of course I do have thousands of, well, not thousands, but loads of tiny scratches from the cats over the years, which have decided it would be a good idea to push their claws into my flesh, shall we say. So I've got little tiny marks all over my arms, little tiny white marks. I hope you haven't sort of got an allergy or something, and you've been scratching yourself in your sleep, because that can be painful. Sorry to apologise to anybody who may have joined the stream expecting to see carving this evening, but I've had some stomach and front surgery this afternoon, and the carving requires me to use my stomach muscles to basically hold myself whilst I'm doing the carving, and it proved to be too painful. So I've had to switch to doing something else, which is this evening, Punchcraft. Hopefully normal service will be resumed either tomorrow or Saturday. We shall see how it goes tomorrow evening, as to whether or not I can actually stand to do some carving or not. Phantom cats and cat ghosts, eh? Or do you have a cat door and a cat's coming in without your knowledge? My wife certainly believes in cat ghosts. Oh, ow. Note to self, don't laugh. Ah dear. Which of course guarantees that stream will probably now try and make me laugh. Oh. Yes. Also a note to self, remember this needle is sharp. Yeah. Yeah, people are sadistic like that, aren't they, Free? Dear. I'm eating my tea at the same time as I'm doing this. So I've got some nice fish fingers without the custard. Let's see if anybody works out the reference. Okay. Now all I said was, what did I say? I've got my tea here as well. I'm eating my tea at the same time as I'm doing this. I've got some nice fish fingers, but without the custard. So I was just wondering if anybody would follow the reference. Welcome to anybody who's just started viewing the studio this evening. I apologise if you've joined expecting to see some carving, but due to some stomach and chest surgery this afternoon, I'm not able to do any carving at the moment. It is unfortunately too painful for me to do that, so I've substituted doing this for the moment. This is Punchcraft. I've caught you out, yes. I thought you knew all the science fiction stuff, Free. So there's a big hint for you. I'll put you out of your misery. It's a Doctor Who reference. It would have been David Tennant. Yeah, David Tennant, I think, with Amy Pond, where he's just regenerated. Although I do seem to recall that the latest Doctor has also referenced it as well. Yeah, I remember Tom Baker. It's odd. The one the one I kind of, I guess, I enjoyed most was John Pertwee. He was kind of the doctor that was around when I was growing up, but I remember quite a few of them, of course. I won't say I've watched every episode because I don't think I have, but I kind of enjoy it. The newer ones are quite good as well. It always takes some getting used to the new doctors though. This new one, Peter Capaldi, is somewhat different. Yeah, my wife told me about that because what's his name? The guy who plays Lister is leaving Coronation Street to obviously to go back and play. Reprise the role. I kind of got the impression from what she was saying he wasn't as enthusiastic, shall we say, but given that all the others were together, got together to do it, he kind of felt he couldn't refuse. It seems a bit like though. I mean, they've just lost the ship again, didn't they? In the end of the last series, to that white goo, and it's kind of like, I've not seen this story sometime before. It's going to be interesting to see what sort of tack they take though, because of course they're all a heck of a lot older now than they were back then. Don't know who Guy Martin is. He's not somebody I've done. Hello Tillybug, welcome to the studio this evening. Yes, I'm okay, thank you. It was kind of preventative surgery. Having some moles or heavy skin pigmentation removed. But it's quite painful to use my stomach muscles, so I can't actually carve. I don't think he could refuse though, really, three. I mean, I say, given that the other three were wanting to do it, you kind of couldn't if he wasn't going to be in it, so to speak. You can't really substitute him. You could, I mean, they've substituted. I've forgotten who it was, but the computer before now, of course. But the other two, well, all the other characters are kind of mandatory almost. Oh, okay. Well, I'm surprised I haven't come across him because I used, well, I still do like watching, you know, that sort of thing, like engineering and you know, Fred Dibner type stuff. No, it's nothing too serious, Chilibug. I mean, the idea is to do it so that it doesn't become too serious. Okay. I saw something about rebuilding a Spitfire, so I might well have seen it, but good evening, William. Welcome to the studio this evening. I like the talking of world records. I like the fact that the I think it still is, but the world model speed record is held by a glider. And that includes pulse jets and things like that. I'll have to have a look, see if I can find anything on him free. By which I mean if I remember and I'm stuck for something to do. I shall try and remember, but memory fails sometimes. Right, I'll cut this off and take a look at it on the other side. Oh, that's nice. Yeah, they're powerful beasties, are those Merlin engines. I'm assuming you mean the Spitfire Merlin, because I think they were used in some of the big bombers as well, the Merlins. Okay, so that's one area of the grass. Yeah, they're powerful engines. I mean, if I remember rightly, the original Merlin was developed for seaplane racing, I think. Trying to think what it was. Yeah. Picture of which I just happen to have down here. So 4 of them in that. How's that for coincidence? Oh, yeah. And for anybody that's new to the studio and didn't realise what that is, that's pyrography. Created using heat. Yeah, I'm going to switch to the lighter green now, and then we'll switch back to the darker green to do a little bit alongside the locomotive before we do the sky. Yeah, it is when you get those 4 engines, especially when they're in sync. There is an amazing sound out of those 4 engines. I've only heard them once, and they were doing a transit as well, and they were accompanied by 2 of the Spitfires. Trooper hates Twitch login. Good evening, welcome to the studio this evening, welcome back. Sorry you're not seeing carving this evening, but unfortunately due to surgery it's too painful for me to do some carving, so I'm doing this instead. Oh dear. Oh, if you want some really good oops, that looks not very good. If you want some really good noise, well, you can't do it now, but stand at the end of a runway when Concorde takes off with full reheat. That's a phenomenal sound. The ground shakes and everything. You don't so much hear the sound as feel it. Yeah, there's something about the World War II aircraft. They were I kind of describe them as beautiful aircraft. They were really nicely designed in terms of shape. I mean, obviously they don't have a very nice purpose, but yeah, indeed. That is a sentiment I would agree with. It had to happen, but it kind of just as it had come back into service, it did feel kind of like it was I don't know, a little premature. Must admit, that final day when you saw the 3 Concordes land at Heathrow, one after the other, that was quite an emotional time, really. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I'd love to have been there to see them land, to be honest, but you kind of wouldn't have seen it with so many people. You, yeah, the last shuttle mission. I mean, yeah, I saw the first takeoff and the last landing, so um, not sure I quite understand that Trooper hates Twitch login. I don't think my mum uses one of those tools. I gather your mum does either something like rug making or pictures like this. So most, well, a lot of the tools for doing things like this look somewhat similar. They have a needle on the end of them. They don't always carry the reel with the tool, and indeed the rug making one I've got doesn't. It's just basically the needle and a handle for it. I was about to say you get up early for work, but I don't know what time you actually start work or how much travelling you have to do. I do know when I get up on a morning, watching Twitch is kind of the last thing I think about. I can't even eat breakfast at that time in the morning. So I say thank you for your dedication of logging in and saying hello, Twitch. Trooper hates Twitch login. Now it would have been nice. I've seen one on the pad free. I've actually seen one on the pad ready to launch. Do you watch NASA TV? I'm assuming you do, because I don't think they've been televised on terrestrial TV, or even Sky for that matter. Oh, this isn't needlepoint or cross stitch. Trooper hates login. You would be using a needle for these. This is actually this is more akin to rug making. It creates a loop on the other side. So whilst it looks like sewing on this side, on the other side there's great big loops of thread like you'd find in a carpet. So I suspect she does something like needlepoint or cross stitch, or just embroidery. If I turn it over without bringing my needle out, you've got like loops of thread. So it's got a three-dimensional quality to it, and in fact you can use by varying the depth of the needle, that depth it goes through the material can actually create sort of relief areas. So some areas are deeper than others, deeper pile, or however you wish to describe it. Yeah, oh yeah, the earlier ones certainly. Actually, I've never watched the ISS stream. I've listened to a few of the when they've had amateur radio astronauts up there. I've listened to a few of their broadcasts, but all this IP, all this easy IP broadcasting stuff. Yeah, I must have a look. Well, again, it's one of those. I must have a look. I guess I should give you a 15-minute warning, Free. Can surgery. Just some. Well, it was a skin surgery to remove 3. Well, they get called moles, or basically, big concentrations of skin pigmentation. So like dark spots. Melanomas, they're called. And of course the idea is to remove them in case or before they become malignant. It was in kind of 3 areas, sort of top, middle and bottom of my chest and stomach, so the whole of my front is affected. Which unfortunately made it impossible to well, not impossible, but shall we say very painful to carve. So I substituted doing this instead of going off air. Sliced and diced, as they say. Yes, sliced and diced. Now that you well, I suppose you could freeze, but they still have to cut. They cut them out so that they can test them. I'm not sure you can freeze them. It's not like skin tags. They're actually sort of within the skin layer. Just dark areas of pigmentation, like freckles if you like, but actually darker and larger. So what they end up doing is removing something like about a 1/2 inch diameter circle, and then they make it into an eye shape so that they can actually close the wound up in a reasonable shape. Yeah, catch you later, 3D. If there's anybody watching that hasn't realised or doesn't know 3D, 3D bloke there is an airbrush artist, and he's disappearing just now to set up his own stream. He goes live in, generally speaking, about 10 minutes time, and he does airbrushing. He also does normal paintbrush art as well, though not as often. And he's just recently been doing some amazing monochrome, that's white on black paintings, like Darth Vader helmet, and a piece he's currently sort of working on from time to time is a xenomorph from the Alien films. But at the moment he's doing some freehand, I hesitate to say abstract, but some sort of freehand work on some canvas paper he's got. So he's doing a bit of experimenting at the moment. Well worth checking out. And it's where I'll be after I finish my own stream. Sounds like he may just have gone live. kind of do with you having doing my lawn this weekend. Trooper hates Twitch login because I have been given special dispensation now not to do it this weekend because of the surgery. I don't actually like cutting grass. I wouldn't mind it if I actually had a lawn tractor, but I don't have a big enough lawn to need a lawn tractor. But yeah, have a good day. Hope the weather's reasonable and you enjoy what the day is like. And thank you very much for dropping in. I do appreciate it, thank you. Albert Crystal, thank you very much for following the studio. That's absolutely fantastic of you. Thank you. I do appreciate it, especially feeling the way I am at the moment. So thank you very much for following. Hopefully you're enjoying the content. I'm sorry it's not the carving. I don't know if you were expecting to see carving, but unfortunately surgery today has made that extremely painful for me to do. So that's why I'm doing this at the moment, but we should be back to carving hopefully tomorrow, but maybe the day after, and other crafts to follow that as well. 10 degrees at the moment. That sounds cold, but I actually would enjoy it for a little bit. It's 25 degrees in the studio here at the moment, which is a little warm. But anyway, have a good day. Could be worse, it could be snowing. You know what? I wouldn't actually be that bothered to do so, that bothered by doing so, Trooper hates Twitch login. I'm not one for really hot weather or hot temperatures, I'm afraid. 10 may be a little bit cool, but for inside a house. But outside with a jacket on, it's not too bad. Well, if there's anybody new to the studio that's watching this evening, good evening, and thank you for joining. What you're looking at here is Punchcraft. Normally at the moment I'd be doing carving. Currently in progress of carving a dragon, but due to some surgery today, that's too painful for me to carve today. So I'm doing this particular craft instead. This is called Punchcraft. What this is doing is this needle is actually pushing or punching through the material and creates a loop of thread on the other side. So what you're looking at here is the back or working side of the piece, and the actual image is formed on the other side in somewhat like a rug or a carpet style. So lots and lots of loops of material. And indeed, commercial rugs are often made in a similar way to this, but just using lots more needles at the same time. But I also do some other crafts. I mentioned carving. I also do pyrography, which is creating images by heating wood, and also scraper board, which is a material formed from a sandwich of clay and a backing board, and then covered with Indian ink. And using sharp tools you scrape away the Indian ink to leave the white porcelain clay exposed, so you create a monochrome image. Generally do each of those in turn. So carving, then pyrography, then the scraper board, and then back to carving. I have been doing this particular Punchcraft on Saturday afternoon and Sunday afternoon streams rather than in the evening, but so I've not yet normally done this in an evening, just doing it tonight and possibly tomorrow because of the surgery. But there again, if you guys like watching me do this craft, then I can also do it on a normal evening stream as well in rotation. Tillybug, okay, have a good evening. Nice to see you around. Thank you very much for watching us in the studio this evening. That's fantastic of you. Hope to see you around again in the future. This image is of a British diesel electric locomotive called a Class 66. Which is generally used to haul freight in the UK. So it's a heavy hauler rather than a passenger hauler. And I kind of only know that because I play the train simulator from Dovetail Games. But I just happened to like the picture, so I created it here in Punchcraft. If anybody's got any particular questions about this or about any of the other crafts I undertake, including some things that haven't been seen yet on stream. That's airbrushing, glass engraving, rotary carving, cross stitch, rug making, and quite a few other things. Also make some radio control models. What else? I don't know. I seem to get involved in a lot of things. As it says in the profile, I kind of like to keep changing what I do, rather than continuously sticking with one craft or art form. I like to try different things out. And so far I've just about enjoyed everything I've tried. What happens is this needle, as it pushes through, drags a length of thread through to the other side, and then the friction of the material against the needle holds that thread in place when the needle comes back, leaving a loop of thread on the other side. And that's basically how it works. So it's a relatively special material that's used. I guess down to the way in which it's weaved, because it doesn't disintegrate with the needle being pushed through it, and the needle does actually cut some of the threads. I do know this from the fact that in the past I've tried to get a different material or use a different material, which has ended up in just great big holes. So this particular material, which is sold by the manufacturer of the tool that I'm using, obviously has some special weaving done to stop the threads unraveling when they're cut by the needle or when they're pushed apart. There's about these threads come from the manufacturer, and there's about 60 different colours available. But to some extent you can use any sorts of threads. Normal cottons, sewing cottons, can also be used, but generally speaking they're used with a slightly smaller needle than this. The needle size tends to be matched to the thread it's working with. And this particular tool works with this thread. It's a 2-ply, fairly fluffy cotton type material, and you can also use cross stitch thread with this, provided you use just 2 of the cross stitch threads, not the full bundle. You can also get tools that work with wool, and then you can create actually rugs. And of course wool itself can be got in millions of colours from various places, so there's one heck of a palette available to you if you use the bigger tools and start creating rugs. Lapugena, good evening, welcome to the studio this evening. No, I've not finished the dragon, I'm afraid. I've just got to the point of starting to carve the dragon itself, but I've had some surgery on the front of me today, and my stomach and chest, and the carving uses stomach muscles to stabilize your body while you're carving, and it was just too painful to carry on, so I wasn't able to carve the dragon this evening. So this is a substitute stream, because it was either do this or not stream at all tonight. So this helps take my mind off the fact that it's quite painful. But hopefully, maybe not tomorrow, but hopefully by the weekend I should have recovered enough to be able to use my stomach muscles without any pain, and I'll be able to resume the carving. The dragon will actually probably take at least another 10 hours of work. That's going to be at least another week of streaming. Just depending on how well it goes. I've never carved a dragon before, so I'm taking it fairly cautiously, which means it will actually take longer than something I'm familiar with carving. And because it's there's quite complicated shapes involved, I am instead of what the technique I'd normally use, which is sort of a block carving most of it down to the final depth. What I'm doing is I'm shaping it as I go down through, sort of creating layers of shape. Good evening and welcome to anybody who's watching me in the studio this evening. I'm sorry I'm a little bit quiet. I've had some surgery today and I'm not fantastically feeling much conversational, but I don't mind talking a great deal. What you're looking at is Punchcraft. Normally I'd be carving at this, I would have been carving, but the surgery makes that too painful today, so this is a substitution for normal programming, which will hopefully resume in a day or so. This is Punchcraft. I don't know exactly where it got the name from, but it's punching thread through material, so I guess it's somewhat appropriately named. And given that the tool is called a punch tool, it does seem reasonable. If anybody has any particular questions about this or any of the other crafts that I do, then feel free to ask them. I don't mind answering questions. And if you're wondering what other crafts I do, this is Punchcraft, but carving or relief carving. Not that good at 3D carving, but I'm working on that. Power carving, that's using high-speed rotary tools to do the carving. I also do scraper board, which is a monochrome art form, scraping Indian ink off the top of porcelain clay to create images. I also do pyrography, which is using a heated tool to colour wood and create monochrome images. Also do airbrushing, though that's not been done on stream yet. Glass engraving, also not yet been done on stream. Rug making, cross stitch, none of these have been done on stream yet. May well do so in the future, but not at the moment. But I can answer any questions about them if you have any. And I'm trying to think what else. I do get involved in model making, but that's an extremely wide subject. I mainly these days work with sort of 1/12, 1/14 scale remote control vehicles. So I have a tank here that's half finished, for example, and some articulated trucks and trailers. I also fly model helicopters as well, though that also is not on stream, but I did build a small quadcopter not so long ago on stream, and the test flight of which wasn't streamed, but a video was put out on stream of the test flight. Unfortunately, where I am at the moment in the studio here, I don't have a lot of space. You're looking at about the limit of my studio space, so I can't really broadcast any of the other crafts. Some of which, like the glass engraving and the high-speed rotary carving, require, well, they don't require, but they create a lot of either glass dust or wood dust. And so I always work with an extractor air filter in front of me in order to draw those away, so I'm not breathing them in. And indeed sometimes with the glass engraving I will actually also wear a particle or solvent mask so that I don't breathe in the glass particles. But unfortunately that's behind me, and I can't actually get a camera set up or even a chat window or anything like that nearby, so unfortunately I can't stream those. But hopefully later this year I will be moving to a larger studio where I will actually be able to do some of that, and also maybe stream completing some of the large scale models I've got, like the tank, or even building a 3D printer, and I've also got a small laser cutter as well kit to build, but unfortunately, as I say, that'll be later this year. And by later I mean somewhere towards Christmas. Need to pull this material through. It's pushing it through like this. Punching this tool through does tend to drag it through the hoop, which makes it slack, and it's a lot easier to do this when the material is taut. So just pulling it back so that it remains taut. We've almost finished this section of grass. got to remember to keep my fingers out of the way of the needle from underneath. The needle is relatively sharp, but well, unless I was driving it really hard, not sharp enough to penetrate skin, but it would probably give a nasty scratch or scrape, certainly a painful one, if I hit myself. So I do tend to avoid that. There we go. We'll turn it over in a moment and we'll see how that looks. Just cut this thread off first. Now there's nothing actually holding any of this thread in place, so if you got hold of one bit of it, you could pull the whole lot out, which is not really a good thing. So there we go. This is the front side. You have been looking at the working side. Now I could almost call that a finished piece at this stage, but I'm going to add some more grass, so this dark green grass here in the background behind it, so keeping it a fairly simple background, and then some sky, possibly a couple of colours of sky. May add a cloud, may not, we'll see how it goes. Adding a cloud may just take away too much focus from the main thing in the middle, which of course is the locomotive. Well, I think, what time is it now? We're approximately 10:30. And I normally finish somewhere between 10 and 30, so it's coming to the end of that. Oops, I've got a little hole there. Well, before I do finish, I'm going to, where were we, around here? Oh, okay. It's actually a little thin all over. Oh, okay. So I was going to just fill in the hole that's there, but there's quite a few thin areas, so I'm not going to do that. I'll do it on another stream. But I'll go back over this area here. I'm losing my touch. I'm out of practice with this. I can see some areas in here which are a bit thin, but this in particular is a bit thin. I'm out of practice. Mainly. So on another stream I'll go over this area again and actually put some more threads in it from the other side and just make it a little bit more compact so that the white material doesn't show through. As you see, most of the other areas are quite compact, but a little bit of white showing through. But anyway, I am going to finish for tonight though. I'm going to give my surgery sites a rest, sit back, have a cool drink. And I want to thank anybody that's been watching the stream this evening. Sorry it's not the carving that you may have been expecting if you're a regular or you've seen me before, but unfortunately, as I say, the surgery this afternoon means it's been too painful for me to carve, because you use your stomach muscles to hold yourself and steady yourself while you're carving. And that was just a bit too much for them, so I've been doing this instead. Hopefully I'll be back to the carving maybe at the weekend. I suspect not tomorrow night, but I'll see, and I will be carving if I feel I can, but otherwise unfortunately I'll be doing this again, or fortunately, depending on what you like to see. Usual advert at this point, of course. If you would like to see me again, then of course I would certainly appreciate you pushing the follow button and following me, and then hopefully Twitch will notify you when I do go live tomorrow or subsequent days. But if you don't trust Twitch, and quite a few people don't, then and quite a few people don't get the notifications, then you are welcome to follow me on Twitter as well, at @ZeroganArt, although the details of that are also below the stream window. I do tweet when I go live. It's about the only tweet I send out, so you're not about to get inundated with thousands of tweets from me. So you may prefer to follow me in that way. But equally, if you just wish to just drop in again and see what's happening the next time I stream, generally speaking, I stream at the moment 7 nights a week, from about 8 p.m. till 10 p.m. in the UK. So starting time is around 2000 hours British summertime, or 1900 hours GMT, or if you're not sure what that is in relationship to your own time zone, if you look at the clock now, whatever time it is, subtract 2.5 hours, and that's when I will be starting in your time zone. Apart from that, I want to say thank you to everybody. Again, sorry it's not the carving if that's what you were expecting, but we should be back to that again. I'm going to wish you all a good evening, and as a gentleman who often frequents my stream, 3D Bloke, who is an amazing airbrush artist, is currently streaming. What I'm going to do is host him when my stream ends, so if you'd like to check him out, then you can either go hop across to his channel now, or if you just hang on until the adverts finish. Unfortunately they're driven by Twitch, then you'll get to see him. He's currently doing, I think he's practicing hair or something, but it's a fairly abstract thing that he's doing at the moment. But apart from that, have a good evening everybody, and cheers for now.